AskReddit by Niripuri. What's something currently in our world that seems off or hasn't felt the same since COVID? Kids. I work with suspended kids. Since COVID every year has been worse behaviors. I thought it was because of COVID affecting the age group I work with while they transition from elementary to middle school. But 4 years later we're getting kids who were in 1st and 2nd grade with COVID that can't read, have zero social skills, and are just straight addicted to iPads, iPhones or their Chromebooks. My wife works with kids age K3. She says they are getting worse each year. I think part of it is COVID, but the bigger issue is the iPad kid effect is growing and becoming more common. Drivers have become a lot more aggressive and reckless. IDK for other states, but my state allowed teenage drivers to get a driver's license with no test during COVID. You have tens, if not hundreds of thousands of new drivers who otherwise shouldn't be driving unsupervised. Why haven't the 24/7 diners come back? Or even past 10? People? Everyone's rude as fuck now. The social contract got broken. Aging. Maybe it's just me, but I still feel like I'm mentally frozen at the age I was during the pandemic. I don't know if it's a normal thing or not, but it feels weird. I've heard this from other people. Like, we're all emotionally stunted because of it. I'd believe it. I had a bunch of unrelated traumatic things happen at that time, on top of the pandemic. I still feel 29. Human interaction in general seems a bit off kilter now. I agree. I'm a parent and I've tried to get to know other parents at my local events and farmers markets, and it feels like people are very closed off from chatting with new people. Everything feels isolated even though I'm in a public setting. I've considered that maybe I'm just not someone people want to be friends with, but I've heard echoes of it from other people who are parents in other places. It's sorta like people got so used to having to isolate that they forgot they don't have to anymore. Restaurants and fast food. Fast food, fast casual, significantly more expensive, smaller portions and lower quality across the board. Some places are more expensive than sit-down restaurants now. Restaurants, mediocre service, more expensive, kitchen service fees. My mom hasn't really been out since before the pandemic. We recently went to Burger King and got the cheapest dollar menu stuff for the two of us, and she was appalled that the total was $9. I wanted to laugh, but I couldn't. It really used to be like that, not that long ago. Time. COVID was over 4 years ago now. It feels like it both something happened really recently and something that happened a really long time ago. COVID broke time. It seems like the natural flow of months and seasons is off. It's hard to explain. Prices. Inflation is definitely a thing, but prices up 50% or doubling long after shortage reasons. There were supply and demand issues during COVID that raised prices, but greed always slips in and does its thing, but man, it's out of proportion. Consumers spent money during the pandemic like they were all gonna die too, so that only exacerbated things as well. Good times. Yeah, they raised prices when supplies were strained, but never lowered them when the supply chains were restored to normal. Everything is so much more polarizing than before. I would have thought that a global pandemic would unify humanity and bring about a big sense of understanding and perspective, but it seems to have done the exact opposite. Yeah, that old sci-fi trope of the whole world coming together to fight an alien invasion seems quaint now. A lot of us would call it a hoax, others would side with the aliens. So many safety measures from COVID have just morphed into cost-cutting measures. Like there's this taco place by my apartment called District Taco that eliminated their self-service salsa bar during COVID, but the little corporate bean counters refuse to bring it back because they don't give a flying fuck about quality of experience. They just see some short-sighted increase to the bottom line before they realize the place sucks without the salsa bar. They just want to extract cash from people who walk in the door. I used to go there every week. Haven't been back in like a year. Frankly, their tacos are dry and Midwest grade. Only thing that made me like that place was the salsa bar. This is just another reason I think business school majors are on the most soulless, malignant motherfuckers in America and ruin everything we once liked. Starbucks did something similar. We used to have sugars, cream, and toppings, vanilla, chocolate, cinnamon and nutmeg powders, out for customers to use. Now, nothing but napkins. Not even supposed to put out straws, and we just stopped carrying the nutmeg, vanilla, and chocolate. Life in general. I don't know how to describe it, but life used to have a certain feel to it. I can't help but think that feeling has been lost forever. It seems like I'm sleepwalking through the years since 2020. It's so good to know I'm not the only person with this vague but cripplingly strong feeling. I found myself reflecting a lot on how life has changed since the COVID pandemic is no longer considered an emergency in my country. Not about how people work, or how we shop or what we do for entertainment, but how we interact with one another. It's been 4 years. I've previously seen 4 years come and go in the blink of an eye without much of anything changing, but the last 3 years has decimated my social life. My relationships with every member of my family and my friends has drastically changed. I have drastically changed. Looking back at photos that were taken of myself and friends shortly before March 2020, I have a hard time relating to them. Is anyone experiencing the same? Has anyone found success in clawing back some of what they lost? As someone who works in retail, it's 100% people's inability to carry out casual conversation without feeling threatened. Not only that, we have had so many customers who start arguments with employees just to do it. Weird ASF. I never remembered people being like that pre-COVID. Mental health in young people. I'm an educator and it is a different ballgame since then. I was a tween and teen during COVID. I can't think of one friend who hasn't struggled with their mental health. Being able to afford for a roof over your head. I was just telling my therapist the other day, if COVID had happened 10 years ago, I'd have been homeless and jobless and royally ked financially. I remember what it was like working 70+ hours a week just to pay rent and loan payments and the most basic of food supplies. I ate a lot of free food at my jobs, both in food service, both dependent on a college population for existence. My heart freaking breaks for the people who were in that same situation I was in back then when COVID hit. People. It's like they've ripped the veil of common courtesy and politeness off and are just utter shats. Quality. Everything's shit. Like everything. I miss shit that wasn't shit all the fucking time. Just work, don't break, don't be ridiculously expensive. From shoes to toothpaste to service, shit. My attention span, RIP. Seriously, though, I feel like since we started filling the days with doom scrolling when we were all on lockdown, it just broke something in our brains and we haven't fully healed since. Concentrating on anything is more difficult now than it ever was pre-2020. People are desperate, pessimistic, and pissed off. Life was much better in 2019, and I was optimistic for the 20s. Biggest letdown in my life, and I'm 41. Volunteerism. Volunteer programs just haven't bounced back. I wanted to start volunteering when COVID calmed down, but the past few years I've been just barely skating by financially. Until I find a better paying job, I can't realistically devote time to volunteering. I need to make sure I can keep myself afloat. Listening to someone cough. Dirty restaurants. Before I just felt like I'd get sticky or maybe stained up. Now I feel the same, but also like I could catch something. Is this really a thing? I don't want to name the restaurant because it could just be a crazy occurrence, but my wife and I went out to dinner, which we rarely do anymore, and there was food under our table. We ended up having to clean the food up ourselves. Super gross. Drivers. They got more aggressive. Places for kids to socialize, especially during bad weather or winter months, etc. There's so many places that closed during COVID. My youngest missed out on some great ones that the older sibling got to enjoy, and I feel like it really stunted her social skills development.